not. Hey, how are you today? This is Josh Patrick, and you're at the Sustainable Business Simulcast. We are doing a Facebook Live presentation with my guest, Stacey Brown Randall, and I'm Josh Patrick, I think I just said. And we are also going to be recording this for a podcast episode, which will be on the Sustainable Business Podcast, in 12 or 14 weeks. But instead of making my guests wait forever, we do the simulcast thing, and it tends to work out better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the recording for the podcast. We're not going to take any questions while we're doing the podcast episode, but if any questions appear, we will answer them after the podcast episode as we extend our Facebook Live a little bit longer. So here we are, and we're going to start the podcast recording. Hey, how are you today? This is Josh Patrick, and you're at the Sustainable Business Show. My guest today is Stacey Brown Randall. She is an expert in referral marketing. She lives in Charlotte, North Carolina, a really nice city, except it's too darn hot, in my opinion. She has we were just spent the last 5 minutes or so talking about the wonders of the food business, because it turns out her family's been in the restaurant business for a zillion years. She unfortunately has had a business failure, and through that has come out and become more, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Accomplished, I guess, or consistent or sustainable through lessons she's learned. And today we're going to talk about the wonderful world of referral marketing. And she promises me that at the end of the broadcast, I'm going to be really happy we talked about this. So let's bring Stacey in, and we'll start talking about the wonderful world of referral marketing. Hey, Stacey, how are you today?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. So let's start out with this. Why should I want to do referrals?
You know, Josh, when most people ask me about referral marketing, they kind of get it in terms of referrals are great because it's really like someone, a potential new client dropping into your lap that you didn't have to do too much work for. It wasn't someone you had to cold call or go to a zillion networking events to eventually meet. You didn't have to spend a bunch of money on, mailers in the mail that would actually arrive in their mailbox, and you'd have to send a bunch of cold emails. They understand that there's such value in having a referral because they are usually easier to close. They are usually less price sensitive because they already value you because somebody else had said, hey, that's who you should be working with. And, they really truly are yours to lose when someone has referred them into you. So I find that most people get it in terms of why we should care and why we should want referrals. It's typically the how do we do it, and particularly how do we do it without asking, that stumps most people. And if they don't get the right advice, they typically get the advice of you've got to ask. So then they're just not interested because asking for a referral feels like a cousin to picking up the phone and having to make a cold call.
I think I'd rather make a cold call.
Well, I don't want you doing either. I don't want you asking, and I don't want you cold calling.
Okay, so if I'm not asking, what am I doing?
Well, so that's the beauty of my system and what I kind of figured out in terms of generating referrals. I'll tell you this, I didn't start out to be someone who has really grown their knowledge and their expertise in how to generate referrals. That wasn't actually how I got started. When my business failed and I looked back over my first business, when it failed and I looked back over what I did wrong, what I realized is I never touched business development every day. I hadn't figured out a way to touch business development every way in a way that works for me, like in a way that I'm actually willing to do it, because there's things I'm not willing to do. And so when I kind of figured out, well, what am I willing to do? Because business doesn't grow on trees and it doesn't just show up. I thought, okay, so I've got to figure out a way to bring in business. And I liked everything I heard about referrals, except for the fact that you were supposed to ask for them. And that's been the decade-old advice we've been receiving is like, you've just got to ask. And my favorite part of that is, and if you won't ask, Josh, it's your problem. Like, that's terrible. Like, to me, none of that made sense. And I was like, this can't possibly be right. So when I had the opportunity to go out and start my next business, I told myself, I was like, I'm going to figure out how to generate referrals. I'm going to figure out a way to do it without asking. And I did it because I needed a business to be successful. I did it because of sheer necessity. I could not have another business failure. I didn't want to go through that again. And I didn't want to have to go back to the 9-to-5 job, working for the man. And so, because that's what I had to do when my first business failed. And so I had to figure out a way to make this business that I'm in now successful? And it turns out I did figure out a way to generate referrals without asking. And it was great. It was working really well for my business and productivity coaching practice. Then my clients, who were small business owners, started asking me, what are you doing to get all these referrals? And I started teaching them what I had learned. And then they started having success. And then I kind of transitioned my company into really just focusing on teaching other people how to generate referrals without asking. And it's just not as hard as most people think, but you do have to know what to do and then understand what order to do it in and what language to use while you're doing it.
Okay, so I don't want you to expose all your secrets, but I would like to find out what is it I should be doing besides asking.
So here's what I tell folks. So the first thing I always tell folks is you have to stop asking if you are asking, because unfortunately you have built a reputation for yourself. If you're asking all the time, you've become that guy or that girl who's always asking. Like, it's like the person who approaches you at a networking meeting and you're like, oh no, how do I get out of this? Because they're just going to talk about themselves and ask me for things that I'm not prepared to give them. So I always tell folks, if you're asking, the first thing you need to do is stop. The second thing you need to do is you actually need to go back in, and I tell folks it's really easy, kind of 5 steps, and I'll lay out the 5 steps for you. I always tell folks the secret sauce for what I do is all wrapped up in step number 3. So the 5 steps to generate referrals without asking, if we've stopped. So let's assume, okay, we're not asking, either we've never asked or we're just stopping asking. The first thing you have to do is you have to identify who has actually referred you. Like, who are your referral sources? If you've received referrals in the past, those people who have referred you a client, they're your referral sources. I'd like to start there because it gives us a baseline from which to start. So you got to identify your referral sources. The second step is that you've got to figure out how to categorize those folks, because someone who sends you 10 referrals in a year, to be honest, they are a little bit more valuable than someone who just sends you 1 or 2 referrals in a year. But not everybody you know is going to send you a referral, and certainly not all your clients will, or everyone in your network. So we want to know who those people are, and then we want to be able to categorize them in a certain way so that when we do step 3, we understand what we're going to do for each of these categories or each of these groups of our referral sources. And I tell folks, aim somewhere between 3 groups, 2 groups, maybe 1 group if you don't have a lot of referral sources, but it's all dictated by how many referrals received. Then we move into step 3. So now we know who's referred us. We've kind of categorized them. If we have enough, we can categorize them. And we move into step 3, which is we want to create a referral experience. And a referral experience is all about focusing on building relationships with our referral sources through ongoing connections, or what I refer to as ongoing touch points that keep us top of mind, not keeping us in touch. Top of mind is totally different from keeping us in touch. And I want you focused on this referral experience, these touch points that you're going to do for your identified referral sources. I want you to figure out what you can do that's memorable and meaningful that keeps you top of mind. And there's a few platinum principles I always tell people we have to build this experience around so that we keep the focus on the right person during this process, which is the referral source, because it's not about us. So, and then step 3 is, what does that experience look like? And then when you're actually doing the outreach with those touch points, building those connections in that relationship, what language are you using to plant referral seeds? And it's usually really basic stuff, but it's not stuff most people have talked about. And I tell folks that's kind of my secret sauce, is really understanding, okay, what does it look like to plant those referral seeds so we're never having to ask? And then from there, step 4 is, okay, so this great plan, this great referral experience we just built, how do we automate it so that we're not doing all this work? You can't automate everything. Some things you have to put your own touch on. And then step 5 is, all right, let's track it and see how we're doing and measure our success, because I'm not just interested in how many referrals you receive when you're doing the program or following the system. I'm actually more interested in the number of referrals you receive, but how many referral sources that were sending you 1 or 2 referrals, now that they're kind of being put through this referral experience, how many of them are now sending you 5 or 6? So you've moved them up from a lower level to an upper level, and that's step 2 categorization of our referral sources. And it's really simple. I think people go through it and they find it more simple than it probably sounds when I'm explaining it, but it's a truly simple process.
So you want to keep yourself as top of mind.
Yes.
And what would you be doing if you were to keep yourself top of mind?
Sure. So I'll give you a great example. I wish I had the prop on me since we're doing a video, but I don't. But so a couple of years ago for Mother's Day, so one of my referral experience touch points that I do every year for my referral sources is that I recognize Mother's Day and Father's Day. Now, for those referral sources that don't have children, of course, I like to recognize the start of summer. And I always tell people, you got to look for ways where you can be memorable and meaningful. I call it remembering your M&Ms, right? So thinking about the candy, right? The M&Ms, you want to be memorable and meaningful. So you want whatever you do to have an impact on them. Well, it can only have an impact on them if it's all about them. So I think it was 2 or 3 years ago for Mother's Day, I sent all of my referral sources that happened to be working moms or own their own business or working professional, because that's technically all that my referral sources are. I sent them all a Wonder Woman water bottle. My logo was nowhere on that water bottle. So it was just the Wonder Woman water bottle, and there was a note attached to it that they could remove that just said, "Never forget you are a hero. Happy Mother's Day, Stacey." And so they knew by receiving that water bottle who it was from, but that water bottle was all about them. It was me recognizing them. Hey, I know what it's like to be a working mom. Right. And of course, on Father's Day, I did something different for the dads, but it was about being impactful. And those women who received that Wonder Woman water bottle, it's been a couple of years and they still remember that I sent them that water bottle. And every time they pick it up to use it, or more likely they see their daughter running around with it, I had some say, "I need a new one. My daughter just stole mine." They remember me. I stay top of mind because I was memorable and meaningful. It wasn't an email I sent that said, "Hey, how are you?" trying to keep in touch. I did something that had an impact on them, that met them where they are, told them, "I see you, I'm paying attention to you." And it was authentic to something I'm very comfortable doing. And so it works when you have those ingredients together. So when people go through my program with me, I always tell them and I give them tons of ideas on what memorable and meaningful looks like. But it's all about, what do we think they want or need, not what do I want to give them. Because when you keep the focus on your referral source, you typically come up with the best ideas.
So how does a referral source know when to refer you and what to refer you for?
So that's a great question. And I get that a lot. And I always tell folks, it's not my referral sources or your referral source's job to know exactly how to qualify somebody before they send them to you. So I actually always tell folks, focus on quantity first. We'll focus on quality later, once we've built the habit in that referral source of sending people to you. So typically how a referral happens is a referral source is talking to someone else and they mention a problem, a pain, something they'd like to solve. And that referral source in that moment, you want to be top of mind so that your name comes up in their mind as a solution to solve that person's problem. So if you're talking to someone, they're like, "Wow, I'm just not bringing in enough business. I've got to figure out a way to get new clients. I really wish I could do it other than cold calling." Right? One of my referral sources would naturally say, "Oh, well, what about referrals? Do you get any business from referrals?" And they may say, "No, but I'd love to." And they're like, "Oh, well, then you got to talk to Stacey." And then they would connect us. And so it's making sure that you have enough referral sources that A, know what you do, and B, come across the type of people who could use your services, which means, let me just use as an example. I don't have a bunch of referral sources that only hang out with executives at companies, right? Most of my referral sources are small business owners, because that is naturally for me who my ideal center of influence or referral source actually is. There are people who are hanging out with other business owners that topic's going to come up, and I cultivate those relationships on purpose, not just some HR executive sitting at a Fortune 500 company. That person's not probably going to be talking to a whole bunch of small business owners or entrepreneurs that want to generate referrals. So it's about understanding the right type of referral source, because they will put themselves in situations where they'll talk to people about their problems. And then I want to be, when it comes into client generation referrals, I want to be the name that comes to mind. But I don't want my referral source sitting there talking, to Tony, who has this problem with client generation. I don't want them sitting there thinking, "Well, are you a good fit for Stacey? Should I send you to Stacey? I'm not really sure if you're the right fit for her." I just want them saying, "Talk to Stacey. I will figure out everything else in the back end if I can help them."
So let me interrupt here.
Yeah.
It's natural for a referring source to be asking themselves, is this the right person? How do you get referral sources to get rid of that question? Just say, "Send them to me and I'll worry about it."
It's actually just using that language. When I have somebody so this is typically going to happen in two ways, right? When I have somebody who reaches out and says, "Hey, I want to introduce you, I want to connect you or refer you to someone who I think you could use, but I don't know if they're the right fit," I always just say back what you said. "Hey, you know what? Figuring out if I can help them, that's my job. And if I can't help them, I want you still to connect them to me so that I can figure out what direction to point them in. And of course, I'll let you know kind of what happens. And that usually is all the referral source needs to know, to be like, okay, great, I'll just refer you and then you can figure it out. Now, if a referral source doesn't tell me that they're struggling to figure out who's the right referral or not for me, I typically just don't see a bunch of referrals coming in from that person. So, I mean, there's definitely referral sources out there that, I know that they may be thinking that, and it's without them telling me, hey, this is what I'm struggling with, it makes it a little harder to know that's what the issue is. But anytime I'm having a conversation with my referral sources, I always just tell them, we're just talking about it or whatever, and they're like, hey, how's business? I always say, oh my gosh, it's great. It's growing by referrals. I get these referrals all the time. They're not always the right fit, but that doesn't matter. It's my job to figure out if they are. So I try to find the right language, and that's one of the things I teach in my program. I try to find the right language for myself and others to use so that we can start cultivating that conversation.
So where does the world of competence fit in? Because I know that, at least this is one of the reasons I think people don't give referrals, is there's a huge trust factor there. And if the person you refer to does a lousy job,
right,
it's not the person doing the lousy job that gets the black eye. It's the referrer that gets the black eye.
The referral source.
How do you, the referral source. So how do you get people over that that hurdle?
It's real. It's a true real issue that people, I think, they deal with in their own minds. They don't necessarily talk about it. So, and I think it's true. How unfortunate it is that the referral source is the one that has to worry about what type of job someone else is going to do and if it's going to damage their relationship with this person they want to refer in to somebody else. So here's what I always tell folks. The easiest place to generate referrals is actually your clients, because they know the job that you do. It's also then centers of influence. And the centers of influence are just a special group within your network that actually know what you do and are actually in a position to come across people who would need your business. And so it's like focusing in on them when you're trying to generate more referral sources. So I always, just kind of look at it from that perspective is that if I do great work, and that's a strong referral foundation I teach everybody. It's the one thing I can't teach you or help you with is you have to know how to do great work. If you do great work, you will have the reputation of someone who does. And great work doesn't mean things don't go wrong, because they will. Something will happen. It will not always go according to plan, but how you fix it says more about your character than the fact that it happened in the first place. So really, I find that it's being more proactive than reactive in that situation. So being more proactive is like giving a great client experience, right? Having conversations with your clients so that you're building that right reputation and buzz, that they are happy with your service. And then always making sure that the referral source knows, kind of what your process looks like, what your system looks like about how you work with people and how you take care of them. But the reality of it is a referral source isn't going to trust you until they've referred you for the first or second time and they've kind of seen how it's gone. And that's what I always tell folks is that you've got to do great work so you have the right brand and the right buzz and the right kind of, reputation in the marketplace so that people want to work with you and want to refer you because they know that you're going to do great work. But it all starts from you actually doing great work. And so, if a referral source has a hesitation, I always think you should address those head on if they share the hesitation with you. The problem is most referral sources won't tell you they're hesitating to refer you because they don't know how you are going to be, right? They're not usually going to tell you that. So I always tell folks, it's like, if you're doing great work, you can overcome that. But if a referral source comes and says, I'm a little uncomfortable referring, I don't know what this looks like, you should be willing to walk them through your process like they were a client so they can get more comfortable about what does that client experience actually look like? And if they referred someone to you, what would it look like and how would they go through it? But it's all in the language you use. That language is so critical.
So how would you get somebody to refer to you for the first or second time? I mean, I get that once someone's referring to you, it's relatively easy for them to keep doing that. But that first or second referral that you're asking for from somebody, that's a tough one to get. And so how do you teach people to do that?
Yep. So it really is. And I think it all comes down to the trust factor, as you mentioned earlier in your question before, is that they have to trust you. They have to know that you do great work. So what I find is that not everybody you work with will refer you. Not all the people you know in your network or even your centers of influence will refer you. I typically tell folks we're looking for the 30% that will. So I'm not trying to change the 70% to refer me if they're not built for that. That doesn't mean that if I don't take them through a system and a process that I can't turn them into referral sources. But I'm naturally starting with the ones that are really that 30% that are already natural connectors, that are already the type of people when you sit down with them and you have coffee with them, they're like already thinking, you can kind of see the wheels turning in their head and they're already thinking about, okay, so who can I actually refer this person to, or who can I introduce them to, or hey, have you met? Right? When someone starts saying, hey, have you met so-and-so? I know they're kind of already primed to think like this in terms of referrals. And so that's kind of a focus point that I always pay attention to. But, also with my clients, I always know that there's always a chance that they have the opportunity to refer them. So the language I use with them in the beginning is just thank you for your support. Then, of course, once they've referred to me, it's more likely for me to say, thank you for referring me to so-and-so. So it really comes down to your ability to just recognize the people who have a better chance of being the type of connector or the type of person who's going to refer you. And then, the other easy thing to do is to always make sure you're talking about referrals without ever asking, just talking about how your business grows. If you tell somebody and they ask you the question, how's business? The typical response is, oh, it's great, it's busy, oh, I'm overwhelmed, or oh, it's going so well, or whatever. I always tell folks the response is that's not the right response. The right response is that your business is growing, if that's in fact true, and we don't want to lie, but it's growing and it's growing through referrals, and you just got XYZ referral lately. Sometimes just planting that seed with someone who's never referred you before is enough for them to be thinking about you in a referral perspective. But again, it's not like I'm going out thinking, okay, I've got to turn 4 people into referral sources today. It's not how it works. It's more of a long-term play, and you have to have some sustainability with it as you're cultivating these people to become referral sources and then continuing to cultivate their relationship with them so they continue to refer you.
Makes perfectly good sense to me. Stacey, we are just about out of time, so I'm going to bet some of the people listening today are going to want to find you and learn more about how you can teach them to be a great referral marketer. So how do they do that, and where would they go?
Absolutely. So my website, you can always go to my website and find great information. But what I'll do is I will create a special link for your listeners and the podcast, and the Facebook folks, where they can go. It's going to be called Growth by Referrals, and that's referrals with an S, growthbyreferrals.com/sustainable business. And they'll be able to go to that page, and I have a great free report they can download called The 7 Deadly Sins of Generating Referrals. We talked about one of those, which is asking for referrals. There's actually 6 other ones that people do that impact their ability to generate referrals in a negative way. So there's the 7 deadly sins, the 7 no-nos, what not to do when you want to generate referrals. They can download that. They can join my free Facebook group, Referrals Without Asking. And I have a great quiz that they can take to figure out, are they a referral ninja beginner or a referral ninja master in their ability to actually generate referrals? And there's some great resources that come along with moving you up to the mastery level for those that are interested. But that'll be at growthbyreferrals.com/sustainable business.
Cool. Thanks so much, Stacey. I appreciate it. And I also have an offer for you. One of the things we were talking about is referrals, which is a subset of one of the 5 pillars of a sustainable business. And that's having a recurring revenue stream. And if you're getting referrals on a regular basis, you will have a recurring revenue stream. So I have an offer for you. It's a 1-hour free audio CD. It's really easy to get. Take out your smartphone. If you're driving, you wait till you stop driving before you take out your smartphone. And you text the word sustainable to 44222. That's the word sustainable to 44222. And you're going to get a link. And you click on that link and you give me your name and address, and we mail you the audio CD. And if you happen to be one of those poor souls that has bought a car recently that doesn't have a CD player in there, just send me an email at jpatrick@askjoshpatrick.com, and I will send you an audio file so you can listen to it. And this is Josh Patrick. You've been at the Sustainable Business. Thanks a lot for coming around today, and I hope to see you back here really soon in the near future. So, Stacey, we are now out on the podcast recording portion of this, but since there are 6 other deadly sins. Why don't we go through a couple that you think are the most important?
You know what? I think that, okay, all of them are important, but I would say the next two that I think folks need to understand when it comes to not doing these things to generate referrals is the first one is that you're going to pay for referrals. And I think that's just as bad as asking for them as the people who offer some type of compensation or incentive for the referral received. And the reason why I think that's such a bad thing to do, and it's a no-no. Now, let me first say, there are industries where this is common practice and it is disclosed and it's not kept hidden, like in the real estate world, right? So if I'm a realtor and I send a piece of business to a client, there is a disclosure document that'll be signed that says I'm going to get 25% of that referral, of that commission or whatever it looks like. So I'm not talking about it when you disclose it. I'm talking about paying for referrals when you have no intention of disclosing that you're getting a kickback or that you're getting money from it. And so what I find is what that does is that it commoditizes the relationship with the referral source, right? The ability to tell somebody, hey, if you send me a referral, I will, pay you $25 or I'll pay you 10% or whatever it is. It's commoditizing that relationship with that person. And it's making it work, right? It's making actually as a canon them work to do because now you're going to pay them for it. And you typically can't generate referrals in a long-term sustainable way when you're paying for them like that because you're commoditizing the relationship. There's always one or two people that look at this as a business development opportunity and they'll take the money, but those people are so rare. The other reason why paying for referrals is so wrong is because if the trust factor is so critical in generating referrals, for me as the person who needs a service, who has a problem and needs somebody else, and then my friend says, go talk to Josh, right? If I find out that my friend's getting paid by Josh to send me to Josh, all of a sudden it's not my friend who knows I have a problem and is helping me find the best solution. They're making a buck off my pain, off my problem, and sending me to Josh, so to speak, right? Just using us as examples. And so that's another huge no-no that I'm very much against is the actual paying for referrals, particularly when you have no intentions of disclosing upfront in advance that that's what's actually going to happen. And then the other big one that I always tell folks is a big no-no is you actually don't have a really strong client experience. When clients go through the process of working with you, there's no reason for them to want to talk about you. There's no wow factor to it. There's no true getting the work done, but also building a relationship. Your client experience is then choppy. And when it's choppy, it's just not great.
I have a sub question for you.
Okay.
What if the service you provide is relatively embarrassing? For example,
Yes.
A lot of the people I work with have broken businesses.
Yes.
And they're not likely to go out and tell their buddies, you got to talk to Josh. He's got this really great process for fixing a business that is broken. Unless somebody comes to them and says, my business is broken and I need help. And that happens about as much as you see a black swan. Right.
Yes. Okay. So two things to consider in this case. Usually when somebody's business is broken, right? And as a business coach, I know I kind of see this from time to time, but I don't do business coaching as much anymore. But when I used to, I would see this from time to time. And you're right. Most people don't want to tell everybody my business is failing, right? But they typically do talk to a couple of people. So let's using you as the example. If you have a program or service or product that helps people when their business is broken, right? There are people that business owner is going to be talking about their broken business. Maybe it's their financial advisor. Maybe it's their attorney. Maybe it's their CPA. Or maybe it's their banker, right? There are people that they're going to be willing to talk to about their business being broken. It could also be their buddy that's in a group with them that's another business owner that they know have been through it, right? I mean, people know because I openly talk about my business failure, so I hear about their business failures all the time. So there are people that naturally are the type of people that other people will talk to when they have this problem. So I would say that you need to be cultivating referral sources that are going to be the people on the front lines having conversations with these business owners who are willing to share with them, yes, my business is broken, or yes, my business is headed towards failure, or if I don't do something soon, something bad is going to happen, like my business is going to fail. So sometimes it's about cultivating the right referral sources, and that would be within your centers of influence, right? So then you would want referral sources that are CPAs and attorneys and maybe other, sales trainers, because they see people trying that as a last try to okay, maybe if I get some sales training, maybe I can get some business in and my business won't be broken. just using that as an example. But you can always find groups that those people will be talking to. And you want that person to be top, for you to be top of mind to that person, so they'd recommend you. So that's kind of the first thing I would say. The second thing is you're right. A lot of people aren't going to go out and talk about their business failing. But I bet out of all the people who you've helped, Josh, there's probably a subset of them that are not afraid to talk about their business failing and do talk about it because they have a mindset of abundance, and their mindset is set to the, well, if I can tell somebody else how I came back from this, I can save somebody else from going through this. So it's looking for those clients that would be willing to naturally talk about their business failure and how you solved it naturally. And yes, you can get testimonials and do case studies with them, right? But it's also really focusing in on those people who are willing to talk about what the process they went through, whether it failed or whether it was saved. They are willing, that 30% of probably of your clients that are willing to talk about it, and making sure you have a referral process for them where you're following up with them, staying top of mind, giving them an experience, and using the right referral language, which I call referral seeds, and planting that along the way so that you're better likely to actually receive referrals from them. And so it's kind of just looking at this from the perspective of, you're right, not everybody will refer me, but who will and who should. And now let's go cultivate relationships with those people.
Great advice, Stacey. I think we'll just end it here, and I want to leave something to the imagination, so folks who are watching right now will give you a call. And once again, how do they find you again?
Yep. So they can just go to growthbyreferrals.com. That is my website. I'm also on Facebook, Referrals Without Asking. It's a free group they can join. But that page I mentioned earlier is where it'll have the 7 deadly sins of generating referrals and some of my other free resources, one-stop shopping, so to speak. They can just go to this one page and get access to a lot of free resources. Is growthbyreferrals.com/sustainable business.
And I'm going to go check that out myself and see what I can learn, which obviously is a lot because I've never been successful at getting referrals. And I've come to conclusions because people were embarrassed about why they work with me in the first place. So,
well, it could be, but we got to overlook those people.
Yeah. So thanks a lot, Stacey. I really appreciate your time today. And I hope the folks who watch this got some great information because I did. Thanks a lot. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.